order for democracy to function, we should have an informed citizenry. And that information comes through civic education. Tonight, we're going to be starting a series on civic education. My guest, Mr. Aloysius Street and Bartholomew Wilson. And for tonight, we're going to be starting with democracy. That's the first. We've heard of democracy. We know what it is, or we think we know, but we're going to start very, very basic to define democracy, to discuss the types of democracy, and also the principles involved in democracy. So tonight we are starting a brand new series in civic education. We believe that the only way our country can move forward is when citizens are informed not only about their rights, but also their roles and responsibilities. So with me tonight to kickstart this civic education series, I have Mr. Bartholomew Wilson. Bartholomew, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis.
And we are glad to have you very first time on the show. We say thank you for availing yourself to be part of this series.
Right, thank you. I mean, I've been following this this program. You know, I've been participating as a caller, or maybe sometimes just send text message, but it's good to be on live.
Thank you so much. And viewers, wherever you are, please share the show. Welcome to Focus on Liberia. This is our civic education series. Our next guest for this very, very important segment is Mr. Aloysius Street. Mr. Street, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. And to all our viewers across the globe, we say welcome to Focus on Liberia. And if you have not already gotten your Focus on Liberia t-shirt, if you want to look like me, we're going to be posting the link very shortly. So if you want a t-shirt from Focus on Liberia, you will get one. But hey, let's start the show. We want to welcome again our viewers from across the globe. Let's start with you, Al Street, just a little bit about yourself. And tonight, the topic, as I said previously, is democracy. We're going to be defining democracy. We're going to be discussing the types of democracy and the principles. Okay, so this is going to be in a more of a presentation style. Our guests will be presenting and we'll be asking a few questions, and we will get you involved very early in the game so that you'll be part of the show. So let's start with you, Mr. Aloysius Street. A little bit about Aloysius.
My name is Aloysius Street, for those of you who don't know. I am a current graduate of Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts. I majored in broadcast media, public relations, with a minor in sociology. While I was in schools, I was also involved in my student government. So I was a Senate at large for the school I was at, which means I represent the whole entire student body, and I'm also the vice president. So being involved in policy making and making a difference, I have always been involved into my career. And also I also did the same thing in middle school and high school. So I have a great resume of the subject.
Thank you, Al. Thank you, Al. And I'm very glad the two of you are here. And we'll talk about your passion in this civic education later on. But let me go to Bartholomew. Mr. Wilson, a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm the only novice here, actually. Well, so I'm a graduate of the Cottington University. I got my master's degree in public health from the Cottington Graduate School. I'm also a graduate student at the Harvard University. And so basically my area of concentration is health, global health, so to speak, and research. But the reason I'm interested in this topic is because there is nothing that we can do as a people, positively, whether it be in the area of health science or in the area of, economic or development, without good policies, without visionary leaders. Everything we do is just going to be a waste. And I think we all have to get involved one way or the other. And that is why I'm so passionate about this, because my work becomes easier. As a public health professional, my work becomes easier when we have good leaders, when we have good laws, when we have good policies. It's going to make everything easy for me.
Thank you. Is there any reason why your light is going off and on? Is that a TV or Mr. Wilson? It's kind of blinking.
Yeah,
Oh.
no, it's not a TV. Maybe it's the fan. Let me just turn it on.
Yeah. So tonight is our first show on civic education. Let's start briefly by talking about civic education and why it is important for every citizen to learn civic education. Let me start with Al.
Well, civic education is a foundation of any government in any country. Civic education is what the people need to know about their government and the responsibility of the government, and also too is it calls to come to the check and balance. So once you have those criteria, you will understand that it is civic education that drive the country, and also it's the individual who in our country that decide based on the law of the country on what to do and what not to do, how they can elect the officials, and like for example, like the president or state representative, and also do the roles involved in making the government to be better.
And you can add to that, what's the pitfall? What are the things that will happen? And but Mr. Wilson, you can jump in anytime.
Yeah, actually, so
yeah, what will happen if civic education is not taught in the country, or if the citizens don't know?
Exactly, and what will happen is exactly what is happening to our country. When the people do not know their constitution, when they do not know their rights, when they do not know their responsibilities as citizens, and then they make decisions. So out of ignorance, they make decisions that will in effect haunt them for the next 6 years or 9 years in some cases, or sometimes 12 years, or maybe for generations to come. And they don't even know how to correct some of the mistakes that they have made, because they do not understand what power they have to change some of those things, and what they can do as people to bring about policy changes that will help to improve their livelihood. So what we have in Liberia, the messy education system, the bad roads, the level of poverty, the level of unemployment, these are all consequences of people not being aware and informed of what they need to know as it relates to their constitution, as it relates to their rights and their responsibilities.
And also too, I would like to also add on that, it is also the government responsibility to educate its people on civic educations. What I mean by that is civic education should be implemented within the school curriculum. For example, like little kids, like from the age of 5 or 6 years old, you should know they should start knowing what the branches of government is, what the branches of government do, what are the responsibility of the representative within our government, and what they can bring to the people, and what changes they can bring to the people.
That is very, very important. And that's why I was happy when you approached focus on Liberia, that you wanted to do this segment, because I think it's been 2 years now when we came up with this book. And in the book, in the Liberian Constitution says the Constitution should be taught in all schools. So, but we're not doing that, okay? But that's another whole story. Today, our topic is on democracy, okay? So viewers, if you are just joining us, this is the beginning of our civic education series. And the first topic here is democracy. So we'll begin, and you're going to listen. It's going to be more of a presentation style. If you have any question, please post your question very quickly. We're going to discuss it. We are trying to connect our phone lines very shortly. We're going to be posting the phone line. So gentlemen, let's start with the basic definition of democracy.
Okay, so, and feel free to join me in, Aloysius. To start with the definition of democracy, I'd like to go back to our constitution.
Mr. Wilson, your head is okay when you move back. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So in Article 1 and Article 2 of both the 1847, the 1986, and the 1847 Constitution, there is one thing that remains consistent in those constitutions. Okay, they talk about the power being inherent in the people. It says all power is inherent in the people. Okay, this is democracy. When you define democracy, it is nothing but the will of the people. It is nothing but the power of the people. It says government for, government of, for, and by the people. So this is democracy. And that is why I'm happy that our forefathers included this into our constitution. Without the people, there is no democracy. Without the people, there is no government. Without the people, there can be no government. And it all starts with some basic principles that we'll get into after. But just to put it kind of in a very simple term, democracy means the will of the people.
No, and a democracy is a system of government where the citizens are able to participate in the creation of law and also with the law. So that's what democracy is, which the people are part of the lawmaking, and that's what it should be. They should be part of the lawmaking and decisions that drive them and navigate their future.
Good. And one thing that is consistent, or Mr. Wilson, want to come in? You were saying something?
No, go ahead. I will just, I'll add that too.
Okay, one thing that is consistent between the two of you from the definition is the people. Let's talk a little more about the people. Who are they? And how is this will of the people, how is it reflected in democracy?
Exactly. So that's exactly what I was going to say.
I read your lips. I've been going to
just get it. Like when you say the people, the will of the people, the power of the people, I mean, what does it mean? These are just words, but how you put them into context is what really matters. So the will of the people as defined by democracy and the power that is given to us as citizens of Liberia, let me contextualize it, is really in terms of how we elect our leaders, okay? In terms of how we decide on the policies and the laws that will govern our country. And this is done through an electoral process. So the citizens, all Liberians from Maryland to Cape Mount to Lofa, everywhere, those are the people. And in reality, those are the masters, because I like to say it that way. And because the people from district number 1 in Maryland County and district number 2 in Lofa County cannot all converge at the Capitol building where laws are made, where policies are made, there is a system, which Aloysius was referring to. There is a system established through the electoral process that we can now appoint or designate someone who becomes our spokesman, who represents our voices and our interests at the level where those policies are made. And that person, in my opinion, is really the servant. And those of us who elect or appoint or select, whatever word you want to use, that person, we are the masters, okay? And we send Aloysius as our representative at the level of decision making so that he can represent our interests. He can be the voice of the hundreds of thousands of people back home in district number 1 who are not able to come at the Capitol building because it's just not possible.
So stop there, because this is getting very, very interesting. Now, you have the population of maybe 20,000 people in district number 15, Monserrado County. But all the 20,000 people cannot get around a table to make laws or to make decisions. So you are saying they elect one person, their representative, to represent them at the Capitol building. And yes, that person who is representing them is representing their will, their aspirations, their wishes, so that if they are not satisfied with him, so you call the people the master, Because if they are not satisfied with that person, they say, you can't represent us anymore.
Exactly.
So and person, go ahead, Aloysius, because I'm loving this.
And the add on that we discussing right now is called, popular sovereignty. So popular sovereignty is when the people, now select an individual and trust them with the power to actually, now create laws and regulations that will guide them, to do what is right for the people. So I just want to add that in there. What we are describing right there is called popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty is the people give the power to the government, or to the federal government, or the state government, or the county government, and the power to distribute to that. And then those officials will make laws and regulations based on what the people say they want for their government.
Good. So we got the definition of democracy. Let's give me an example where we can find democracy. And then the next thing I want you to do is to contrast it with other forms of government so that we can see clearly what democracy is. So where are examples of democracy and how is it different from other forms of government?
Well, so in Liberia, for example, what we have there is democracy. At least what we have should be democracy. Okay, in the United States, you have the same thing in you have democracy in the United States. And I know there are other countries, for example, countries like Russia, where they do not practice absolute democracy. There is a little bit of contrast there. I know they don't like to say that, but there's something more like a dictatorial kind of democracy, as I would like to call it. But there are positive, there are negative to both sides. I love democracy. I believe every country should practice, absolute democracy, like in the United States, like other countries in West Africa, like Ghana, for example, like Liberia, we all should practice absolute democracy. But there are different forms of democracy which we can talk about later.
There's constitutional monarchy democracy, which Great Britain has, but the law, that does not mean because monarchy, the constitutional monarchy, that does not mean that the Queen make all the decision. There's also a balance of power, like check and balance. We are going to get into later on, which actually drive the democracy.
Okay, okay, good. So now we are clear on what democracy is. We saw example of democracy, that's the one in Liberia, Ghana, United States, India. That's our democracy. So, but we see that all democracies are not the same. So that takes us to the types of democracy. Types of democracy, and why we have these various types. If possible, as you give us the types, give us some examples of where those can be seen. So let's get into our next topic, which is types of democracy.
Yeah, so basically there are two, I like to categorize them. There are two major types of democracy. You have direct democracy and you have representative democracy. Okay, direct democracy is where the power is actually in the hands of the individuals. So they decide on laws, they decide on policy, they make decisions directly, not through a representative. Say Aloysius and I, we have an organization that you are part of, Dennis, and we want to make decisions. Everybody who is a member of that organization will come to the table, and we discuss, we disagree, we agree. At the end of the day, probably we express our disagreement through votes, and the majority will take the day. That is the pure democracy, and that is the ideal thing to do. Unfortunately, because of the size and the makeup of a society, saying like you have 4.5 million people, it is not possible for all of those people to come together and be able to express their opinion or disagreement. Okay, so in that case, the power is now dedicated to someone. That is the representative form of democracy. where the people do not directly make those policies, but they designate their power. Their authority is now transferred to somebody who represents them. And that is why it's called the representative form of democracy. And in this kind of arrangement, is where you have the legislature, the representative of the different districts, is where the president is elected, is where you have the senators being elected, and all of them are expected to represent the people because they cannot directly get involved in the decision making. So those are the two major forms of democracy, and when we talk about forms of democracy all around the world, but there are systems of democracy, okay? So in the systems of democracy, when you break the system of democracy down, I like to talk to two of those. You have the parliamentary system, and that is what you have in the UK, you have it in Germany, where the people elect members of the parliament, and the members of the parliament, based on the party that wins the highest, seat in the parliament, they appoint the head of government. And that person can be the prime minister, they can be the chancellor, whatever name, depending on which country you find yourself in. And then you also have the ceremonious head of state. So in the UK, you have the ceremonious head of state, the Queen, for example. In Germany, the same thing. That is the parliamentary form of parliamentary system of democracy. Okay. Now, you also have the executive or the presidential system of democracy. The presidential system of democracy is what we have in the United States, for example. You also have it in Liberia. In the presidential system of democracy, the people elect members of the parliament as well as the president, who is the head of state. So in this system, you don't have two leaders. You don't have the ceremonious head of state and the head of government. You only have one president, who is the head of government, and he has a vice. Okay, and the decision of how many members are elected into the parliament by the whether it's the ruling party or the opposition party, it has no bearing on who becomes the president. It is completely decided by the people at the polling centers. They can elect the president, they can elect the lawmakers, they elect the senators. Okay, so that's what we have in Liberia, the presidential system of democracy.
But you also like to add on the two, you touched every single point, Brother Wilson. At the same time, too, how the reason between Liberia and the US is the people have to use their voice. That's why this program is so vital, because it's civic education. And civic education is very important. If a government official, if the president is not doing a job, or a Senate representative is not doing a job, the people give that individual the power. That's where the sovereignty, popular sovereignty come in. The people give them the power, so they can take that power away from them anytime. And that could be, peacefully petition the government, and also, when re-election comes, they go to a poll. And so civic education is very important. And it is every individual duty and responsibility to also participate within the civic education, which when it comes to voting and all these things. But the people have to be educated. They have to know what are the roles and responsibility of the representative, and they need to hold them accountable for their actions, and they need to hold them accountable for their action.
Yeah, I want to make a point right there, Dennis, before you come in, so that I don't lose my line of thought.
Sure.
And this is what I find very important. I think this is why we're having this conversation. Because when the time comes and our people go to the polls to decide who will be their representative, okay, who will be their senators, they are making a decision not for themselves. They are making a decision for their children, for their unborn generations. They are making a decision for the country. And they have to understand that whatever that decision is, they have to live with the result of that decision for 6 years. Because this is very important. That's why when they elect people after 1 year, You see people jump in the street after 2 years, people jump in the street, and you have to understand this. There are only two things that you can do. If I said Aloysius is the best candidate, he's the one who can deliver and those things that we want to see happen for our country, I should remember that that decision, I have to live with it for the next 6 years. And so it should not be on the basis of what I get out of it. It should not be on the basis of how much I am related to Aloysius or how much connection that I have with him. And this is what I see happening most of the time in our country, and I really get frustrated. Because for most people, democracy, when they see it, for them, they define democracy as electing somebody, you know, who they can trust, but mostly somebody who they can benefit from. This is not about personal benefit. And I hear they say politics is interest. Yes, it's interest. But politics is interest for the people, interest for the poor, interest for those who don't have food to eat, who don't have place to sleep, interest for those who cannot afford. That's what it is. And that's what our decision should be based on. The only other alternative for changing these people who we elect is through impeachment. And that is only applicable to the presidency. We have to understand that. You cannot even impeach the senator. You cannot even impeach the representative. They made a law and they made it in their own interest, so they cannot be impeached. They can expel, but that is based on, you know, their own rules and order. So we that appoint them as the masters, we cannot remove them unless after 6 years or 9 years and we go back to elections. So we have to be very careful how we make our decisions. And this is what democracy is all about.
Are all democracies the same? Let's say democracy in India, democracy in Nigeria, democracy in Liberia, the US, are they all the same, or are there some differences?
Not all democracies is the same. All democracy function differently, but it also depends who is elected into office. You know, for example, the US have a democracy, but the reason why the US is progress is because every politician have the countries at heart. They don't have the people elected them to put it in power to serve the people. But in Liberia, that is not happening. We are electing individuals who are going in it and just benefiting for themselves, but not actually creating jobs, you know, and you know, create jobs and fix road. And one thing that I always argue with people is that, oh, it is the person's responsibility to create jobs. No, it's not the person's responsibility to create jobs. The person's responsibility is he's the chief of the country. Pretty much he's go out there and negotiate treaties, and the senators have to ratify that treaty and have to sign that treaty for that treaty to be approved. And then, for example, if you want to create a job, you're in Germany and I'm the president, and then someone can approach me, we'll have a discussions, and then I'll take that information back to my senators, and the Senate will vote on it, and that will become, like, you know, a law, or that will create businesses, and that will bring job into the country.
So you mentioned something, you said the difference is the people in America have the country at heart. I think there are still corrupt people here who are in government for selfish reason. But Mr. Wilson, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I wanted to say all democracies, regardless of the form and manner or the system, all democracies should work for the people. That is the underlying factor. Okay, whether you are in Germany or whether you're in the UK or in the US or in Liberia, all democracies must work for the people. Okay, and if you have a system where that is the contrary, then it's kind of fair enough to say what you actually have is not democracy. What you have is maybe a kind of form of government that you would like for it to be democracy, but it's not really, because if it is not working for the people, then it's not for the people, and then it's not by the people. Okay, so unless you have those three factors in it, for the people, of the people, and by the people, it cannot be considered as, you know, a real democracy.
There's one question or one thing people have been saying. I think you've heard it, and I disagree with that at some point, and I wrote an article. They keep referring to Liberian democracy as young democracy. Is Liberia's democracy young? Why or why not?
I disagree with them also, and I agree with you, Dennis. But I think maybe people what you say, they're not honest enough to say that we don't have a democracy or we don't have a working democracy because when you say young democracy, come on, Liberia is 170 years, more than 170 years. Okay, and you have countries like Ghana, even the Ivory Coast, that are way younger than Liberia, they were established less than 70, 60, or 50 years ago. But they are making advancement, they are making advancement. And so I don't think we have a young democracy. We have a democracy that is not functioning, that refuses to function. And the reason why it refused to function is because we, the people, do not compare our democratic system to function. We have to make it to work. The reason why the democracy in the United States is working because the people allow it to work.
Yeah, but at the same time too, you can't really blame the people if the people don't know what a democracy is. So when people are saying Liberia is a democracy, they are saying it's a democracy because they have not seen a democracy actually function within the time frame. And the people, if they're not well educated on what a democracy is like, obviously you will say, oh, it is a non-democracy. But a democracy comes in when everyone is involved. And most importantly, the people have to hold the government accountable. If the government is not doing what they are supposed to be doing, that's where you have elections. But when elections come, that does not mean that, oh, Joseph come to your house running for senators, then give you a bag of rice and you take that bag of rice. Because you put in Joseph in office for 9 years for one bag of rice. So just imagine that. You put someone in for 9 years and that person going in there, they don't have the country that best at heart. They're going in there probably not creating laws. When there's any budget that come into the Senate, they're not advocating for their district. Like, for example, like Maserati County or like Nema County, the senators are not advocating on those. They're saying, oh yes, we need hospital. Those are similar responsibility. We need hospital. There's a bill that the president trying to present, but you tell the president, I'm not going to sign this bill. I'm not going to vote for this bill because this bill does not have my districts at heart. Within this bill, I would like for funds to be allocated for example, for like school, for hospital, for all these things. That's when you will start seeing the advancements of Liberia. But if none of that is actually in place, if we don't have politicians in place, in office, who have the country at heart, Liberia will always be what it is right now.
Give me a little more detail about having the country at heart.
Exactly. So this is what I wanted to jump in, Aloysius, and not to like disagree with you, but just to say, okay, I mean, it's just difficult for us to think that somebody has the country at heart. For me, it's just difficult because honestly, you really don't know the heart of people. Okay, so we just have to, we ourselves will have to decide on whether or not Aloysius is going to do the right thing, rather than just relying on Aloysius and his good heart. I really don't like to rely on the good heart of people because we are all humans and people change with time. So there has to be a system that will compel Aloysius to do the right thing and not just leaving it to him to decide on what would be the right thing. Okay, so like you were saying, the example you gave, and I really like that because that's what happens in Liberia. People start 2 years to elections, they go and they start to build hand pumps. They build 2 hand pumps and 2 toilets, and they buy football and jersey for the youth, and they provide 2-3 bags of rice for the women, and they provide tobacco and and cane juice or palm wine or whatever for the men, and that's it. That's campaign right there. Okay, maybe they took a loan of $10,000 from the bank, and they use that to run the campaign. The next thing, they win the elections, and they have to pay back the loan. So their priority is about paying the loan. So just with $10,000, somebody can win a district, and within 1 month they get the $10,000 back and pay the loan, and they don't even care about the people who elected them. But this is because the way we make our decisions. We make our decisions on petty issues. We elect people on the basis of nothing. No principles, no policy, no platform, nothing. Just by our hearts, maybe we like them, or maybe we related to them, or we associated with them, so we like them. No, we have to decide the term of reference of our representative. If we are going to elect you, Aloysius, to be the representative of district number 3 in Margibi County, we should draft your term of reference and say, we are electing you there. This is what we want to see happen in the next 6 years. This is the platform of this district that you represent. And when you go there, you have to work in line with that agenda. If you deviate from the agenda, then we have to exercise the authority that has been given to us under the Constitution, so that the next person who comes in understands that this is no joke. Like, we have an agenda and that person has to work in line with our agenda. You don't go to a company and leave the company's policy and you start to do your own thing. You don't bring in your own policy. So the district is our company. We employ you. You do what we say. And if you don't do what we say, we fire you. That's what it should be.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. This is the start of a brand new series on civic education. The importance of civic education cannot be overemphasized, because you need an informed and educated citizenry for our democracy to be able to work. So part of the work we are doing tonight is to inform our citizens about democracy. What is it? What are the types of democracy? And we're going to jump into the principles of democracy shortly. But before we do that, there has also been questions or some school of thought that indeed the democracy that is practiced in America, for example, should not be the same one practiced in Liberia, because we are culturally different and our populations are all different. So what we could do is to customize our own democracy to reflect our culture, to reflect who we are. Any thought on that?
But what the question will be how can we do that? I will also say the reason why the American democracy work, I'll keep saying this, because America have an agenda. And it don't matter who come into office or who leave office. Whoever leaves office, when the next person comes, they pick up from where the individual left the job at. So what I mean by people have to punch our hearts, like Americans, they're all united. When it comes to certain policies, they don't fight. They might fight among themselves internally. But when it comes to external threat, they all unite together. For example, like the war in Iraq, the war in Iraq, they all united. The war in Afghanistan, they all united. What I'm trying to say is that, the democracy in this country has been set by a president. George Washington, he was the first president of the United States. When he became president, he set the example for democracy. He served 2 terms. It was never a written law before 1956 or 1952. After Franklin D. Roosevelt served like 4 terms, he was on the president. I served 4 terms in the U.S. history. So they had to take that off. But for example, if that's Liberia, where there's no president that is sitting down, or someone will come into office and be like, "Hey, my man, yeah, they ain't got time limit 10 years, so I'm just gonna stay here until it's things." So it's like this president already been set, and individual find our president, and they want to make sure that America is the greatest country in the world. So they pursue that by doing what it is best for the interest of the people.
Yeah. And I agree with Aloysius 100%. And to just to add to your question, then is also, I don't really believe in that reasoning that democracy in the United States is not the same as democracy in Liberia. We should practice democracy in our cultural context. I understand cultural context. I understand it well, but I don't see how practicing democracy in a cultural context will mean not adhering to all of the principles of democracy. For me, that is not what it is, and sometimes people who make that argument, I've heard that before, when people say, for example, the function or the roles and responsibility of a lawmaker in the United States is different from the roles and responsibility of a lawmaker in Liberia. I disagree. Same function.
I agree.
Same function. There's no difference. What they try to do is to customize it in a way that suits their situation, that suit their selfish agenda. Now tell me, if you pass a law, you pass a bill in Parliament that says all primary schools in Liberia will be free of charge, is there any reason why somebody should go to your door and say you should pay the child school fee anymore? There's going to be no reason.
Right.
There's going to be no reason at all. Okay? If you create the avenue where farmers in Lofa can be able to farm and bring their produce to town because they have access to road, there's no reason why they should go to your door and go and beg you for handout. The reason why you have people begging lawmakers and running behind them for tuitions and school fees and everything is because they do not provide the opportunity for the people. And for them, that is okay. For the politician, that is okay, because that keeps them in power. That makes them powerful. That makes them masters over the people. They want people to keep going to them, to keep chasing after them, running behind them for what? For nothing, peanuts. And that makes them powerful, okay? So they always use that argument to say there are a lot of things we do as lawmakers in Liberia that people in the US don't do. We take a lot of responsibility that are not part of our term of reference, but we do it because we love our people. I said, no. And I will continue to say to them, this is completely wrong. You don't do it because you love your people. You do it because you want to perpetuate yourself in power. If you love your people, give them the agency, give them the authority where they can fish for themselves, not to give them handouts. And the way you do it is not to pay one person's school fee or provide 2-3 bags of rice and say you're providing social responsibility, what you call social responsibility. I don't believe in that. Provide policies, make laws, allocate money in the budget, and the people don't have to beg you. That's the underlying factor.
You know, and to add on that too, I'll repeat what I just said previously, is the lawmakers are supposed to represent the people. You know, let's just say for District 13, if I'm from District 13 or District 3, and I'm elected, then John come to me and say, oh, can you give me money for me to pay for my child's school fee, which means that I'm not doing my job. My duty is to make sure that every kid or children or adult in that district should have access to a good education. And as a state representative or a state senator or whatever position you are in the government, it is a responsibility to advocate or write a bill. It is the responsibility. They can write a bill, a national bill, and then be like, okay, and turn the kid from to that district. But if I come to you, I'm like the gatekeeper. I'm coming to you, asking you for funds so you can send my kid to school. But what is that doing? What benefits is it giving my district? What benefits is it giving my country? Because like the countries are not receiving the education that's done, and the country does not have education, cannot grow. It can grow.
Okay. Let me read a few comments from Facebook. Okay, the first question here is asking for the FOL t-shirt. First of all, let me display the t-shirt a little more. So, and we have focus on Liberia, educate, elevate, promote all things Liberia. And the link is posted. It's posted on the on Facebook so that you can, if you're interested, you can purchase your FOL t-shirt. The second question, Laston G for Weir disagreed that the president is the head of the government. So I asked him why, and he says, there are 3 equal branches of government. Each has its head. The president's advantage is that he has more power in his branch. He is the head of the executive, but he's not the head of the government. That's what Laston is saying. He said, no single person. The president leads the executive, the chief justice has the judiciary, and the speaker has the house. Okay, and then when we talk about the, William King, our member of FOL, has posted the web link for the t-shirt. So when I was talking about customizing the democracy, Robin Draper said, what would be Liberia's cultural context for which let me give a few examples. For instance, America's democracy, the presidential term is 4 years, Liberia is 6, so that's a little different. Maybe we can choose that, since we can have 4 elections every year or every 6 years, we can do we can find a way and have maybe rotational presidency, east, west, north, and rotate it so that there'll be no too much noise.
But that won't be any democracy anymore. If you already do that, if you rotate presidency, it won't really be a democracy, a democratic system.
So you have sub-election, right? So if the people of the Southeast can come up with one person, and then that person becomes the president after that, the people of Central Liberia come up with one president, and so on and so forth. That's just an example. Or we say, well, election is expensive. Let's have just every president 7 year, one term. That's it. You're not going by because we can't afford to be having election over and over. Or we say, well, this whole idea of president is causing problem because one person is deciding. Maybe we can have collective presidency, right? And within that collective presidency, they can rotate. You have 5 persons. So when they come together, just like the Supreme Court bench. So maybe every 2 years, they come up with one leader who represent them, and they all have equal vote, just like on a city council. So all these things are ways to customize our democracy. Your thought?
Well, I would say you could customize the democracy by cutting down the minute of years the senator serve. That'd be a good start. Because if I have a kid who is 9 years old and Joseph who was just born today, and Joseph becoming, I'm just using the term Joseph just for a name, and Joseph become a senator for District 3, my daughter or son will be 9 years old before he leave office. And what about if he didn't implement any laws or presented any laws for that district he's from? So that is a very long period of time. What they have to do is like cut it down. We cut it down to 6 years or to 5 years. Now we are actually like progressing, regressing. Now, for example, we can the citizen can also say, this is how they can check the representative. Like if you get into office within 1 year or 2, if you don't pass any law or budget within the interest of my county, pretty much like when re-elections come, you're not getting re-elected. So we have to cut down the years that these individuals serve. And then that will put a pressure on us. Like, if I don't do this within the next 2 or 3 years, the people take me out of office. So I have to work for the interest of the people to create school, to create jobs, to create opportunities, to create roles, all these things. That's what we need to focus on.
Say something, Mr. Wilson?
Yes, I agree with Aloysius. I don't see how, I don't see why we will have to, customize it in the way that you described. I know there are things that we can do, like he said, reduce the term of office for the presidency. Maybe now we're going to referendum. I'm very hopeful that we can agree on that provision. I'm also hopeful that we can look at the senators, particularly because 9 years is too much. Maybe drop it to 6 years, the representative 4 years, the president 4 years, and that's okay, because even with the 6 years and the 9 years, they still go for 2 terms, and that's 18 and 12 years. That's just too much. That's just, people become complacent. When they think that they have a lifetime job, they become complacent and they don't deliver. Okay, but if you have a timeline that you got to meet up with your deliverable within this timeline, and you don't have the luxury of time, then it compels you to do better. It really compels you to do better. So reducing that would be, for me, that would be the way to go. Another thing that we could do, and I know a lot of people disagree with me on that, but I don't see, honestly, I don't see the impact of the whole thing with all the multi-party kind of thing and a lot of political party. I think it's just a lot of confusion.
Yes,
I think that's just a lot of confusion. They confuse the people. They confuse the voters, with a lot of rhetoric and political jargons and statements. At the end of the day, the wrong people become elected, and the same politicians come back again. They regroup themselves into another thing, and they come with completely the same ideas, but in a different format. And then the people go behind them, they get elected, they do the same thing. So we don't need political parties to elect leaders, honestly. So why do we need many? Why do we need a lot of them? Because in my opinion, I really don't need political party to elect who I want to be president for like this. I don't need that. Or who I want to be representative for my district. I don't need a political party to do that.
So that's how you want to customize your democracy.
Yeah,
Okay.
You know, that would be one way to go, or just cut down the numbers. For me, it's just confusing all
Yeah,
over the place.
one reason why sometimes the number doesn't make any difference is we hardly see any time where you have 5 competitive political parties. Most of the time, 3, 2, the other are just to make the number, so they really don't matter. But let me bring in another. Robin is asking about the cultural context. Let's say in Africa or in Liberia, elders, we listen to our elders, right? So as a result, when a young person becomes leader, the same respect, maybe, especially in a village setting, elders, so maybe old people should rule, maybe, or and in America, when after election, in the West, after election, people are cool. But in Liberia or in our cultural context, when you vote against your brother, you finish.
Well, that's why it's all come down to that word of know called political tolerance. So political tolerance, what that mean is it's a government responsibility to to protect the minorities who do not believe in their principle or the agenda. Because I don't agree with your agenda, that does not mean that I should just say I can't vote for you. No, you and I can agree and disagree. But at the end of the day, as long as we have a goal and a vision, we can work on this goal and vision. They're gonna work on our differences. But what I see back home is we have all these political parties, like my brother said earlier. And imagine if we have a rotating presidency. So they'll be fighting among each other. My man, on my time. No, my time, on my time. They'll be fighting who becoming president and who actually how to liberate the country.
Okay. That's a good segue to our next segment, which is the principles of democracy. But if you just joining us, this is focused on Liberia. We are discussing democracy, the definition, types of democracy, and the principles. Sorry, our phone line we are having technical difficulty. So please, if you want to call, you can please, if you want to join the discussion, you can post your question or call the number 978-726-6569. Again, 978-726-6965. Call that number and we'll pick up and let you ask your question or make your comment. So let's go to principles of democracy. First, what does that mean? Principles of democracy.
So for democracy to work, there are certain, basic things that must happen for democracy to work. And if you do not have those basic things in place, then it is impossible for you to actually have democracy working in your country. And so those are the principles, those are the things, those things that make democracy to work for any society are the principles of democracy. And there are a lot of them, there are a lot of them depending on which system or culture or society you find yourself. But there are 4 fundamental ones that, I really like because I think they kind of cover everything. So the first thing is elections. Is one of the principles. There has to be an electoral process where the people can be able to exercise their franchise, and that electoral process has to be free, fair, transparent. It has to be void of politics, of political affiliation. It has to be void of religious affiliation, gender, or any kind of form of inequality or social biases. There has to be completely no link with that. The next thing, you got to have the rule of law. It must work. If the rule of law is not working for any country, that country is doomed. You are completely doomed. Then you need what we call accountability and transparency, because when those people are elected, they have to be accountable to the people who elect them, and they have to be transparent in their dealings, in their operations. Okay, and then we have to guarantee the rights and responsibilities of citizens. Okay, so for me, those are the four fundamental principles, but it all starts with elections. So citizens have to take part in the electoral process. It cannot be those people's business. Like some people will say, oh, this is not my business. I mean, I'm not a politician. You know, I'm not involved into politics and I don't care who becomes president, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you understand they say it out of frustration. Sometimes disappointment, or people just say it because of ignorance. But honestly, whether you participate in the electoral process or not, whoever becomes the president or the representative or the senator represents you.
Yeah.
You know, so I think people have to understand that there's no state standing on the fence. You cannot be neutral in this process. Everybody has to get involved, and that's why the citizen participation in the electoral process is the first step to democracy.
And link that to civic education, Mr. Street, before you come in, because if the people are not informed, they are not educated about their roles and responsibilities, about their rights and the limits thereof, how do you participate in the election?
Well, you can't really participate in the elections because you don't know exactly, what is going on. And I add on to transparency. For the government to be held accountable, the people must know what the government is doing. And if we don't know what the government is doing, then they can't hold government accountable. And those who can hold the government accountable are the press, citizens, and independent agency that are able to check to hold the government accountable. That's what comes to like the check and balance. And we have a check and balance system, which one branch check the other branch and make sure that another branch is not powerful. But if the people are not educated and don't know what the government is doing, it's like the blind leading the blind. They're not going to know exactly who to vote for or what to do. And it'll come down to the decision, oh yeah, I would rather accept 2 bags of rice for 9 years than just put him in the office because he came to my family, he gave me pound wine, gave me pound juice, and not just spoke and put him there for 9 years. Then he will come back again. Once that 9 years might be over, then do the same thing always. So it's all about transparency. The people will have to know what the government is doing, and they have to hold the government accountable. By holding the government accountable is if you don't like what the government is doing, peacefully, you can petition the government, or you can write your senators. You can write your House of Representatives. And if you have ideas of a bill, this is how the American democracy works. Yeah, if I have an idea, you, me, and Bartholomew I have an idea, we can write to our senators and be like, okay, we want for this to be a bill, and then it will go to like it will go to the House, and the House will vote on it, then go to the Senate, and the Senate vote on it, and it become law. But if people don't know the process, it is hard to actually elect anyone who will be able to do exactly what they are elected to do.
So I like the concept of the principles of democracy, because you're telling me that these are the basic tenets that should be part of democracy for you to call it democracy. Yes. So if we don't have elections, if one person get there and say, who do we want? Aloysius, who do we have? Aloysius. And then after year, we petition that same person to keep running or to keep being in power, then that is not democracy.
No.
And you're saying also the responsibility to make sure that these ingredients or these tenets or these principles of democracy are there. You have people that have that responsibility. The people should be able to say something. The press, like focus on Liberia, and institutions or organization and pressure groups and so on and so forth.
Who are independent for the government, who will be able to hold the government accountable because they have no interest, they have no relationship with the government. So when something happens, they'll be like, they'll tell the government, hey, what you're doing is wrong, and we are going to tell the people what you're doing is wrong. And then the people can decide, like, okay, yeah, because John has been in office for 6 years now, but he haven't even passed one law for most of the country, haven't even passed one bill to see what the people can do. So being a politician like Bill is almost like going on like a retirement plan.
So who business it is to make sure these things work?
Well, it is everyone's business. The people got a role to play, the government, And, you know, the people that are elected, they also have their role to play. Okay, and the way to do this. So first of all, there's one thing I wanted to say about this thing when we say elections, right? And we have to understand this. It doesn't matter whether we like it or not, but once we go to the polls and we elect somebody, it doesn't matter who voted for that person. At the end of the day, as part of the democratic tenets, we have to accept the result of that elections. And sometimes people have difficulties with dealing with that, but you have to deal with it. In the United States, when they go to the polls, somebody is elected. When President Trump was elected, millions of people didn't like it. As a matter of fact, the Democrats have more, you know, popular vote than the Republicans. You know, thousands, I think pretty close to 1 million. But at the end of the day, he's the president, and that result was accepted. Okay, in Liberia, we got to do the same thing. If you don't agree with the results or the outcome of the elections, there's only one remedy, is to go through the judicial system. Go to the Supreme Court and or go to whichever court is designated and file a petition. At the end of the day, whatever the ruling is, we have to accept it and move forward. And there can be no more because after elections, for me, I see nothing more like opposition and what kind of other position. I see nothing like that. We only have those things during elections. After elections, there shouldn't be. We should have a government, and that government should work for the people, and everybody should support it. Now, the government has a role to play. The reason why you have political parties is to offer alternative ideas to the government, and the government needs to respect that. The government needs to respect that political parties are not opponents, they're not opposition, so to speak. Once election is over, you consider them as partners, because they will offer you alternative ideas that can make the country to move forward. But when you have a situation where we got one group is for and against, then who is losing? Liberia is losing. So that's why one of the major things about elections, we should be waiting to accept results. And when results don't go our way, we go to the courts, we look at the outcome, and the government has to be tolerant, where they listen to the ideas, suggestions of political parties and other independent groups. Because at the end of the day, you are working for everyone, and not just yourself. Until we do that.
Hold your thought there. We got a caller on the line. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
Hey, how you doing? My name is Laston Weir. I'm calling from New Jersey.
Guess, can you hear him?
Yes.
All right, go ahead, Laston. Welcome to Focus.
I made a comment concerning the idea of the president being the head of the government. So I guess my school of thought was based in certain Western democracy. But I did a little more research and realized that the constitution in Liberia gave that much power to the president. Now, that enlightens me, because I realized that this is why we have some of the lags we have, because the in our constitution is actually written in text that the president is the head of the government. Now, in the United States Constitution, you won't find that there. Matter of fact, the United States Constitution starts with the legislative, because the legislative represents the people, and the government is the government of the people. So it starts with the legislative, then it goes to the executive, and matter of fact, in every power that it gives the executive, they make sure they clarify that the executive will report to the legislative, so that check and balance should be in place. But in Liberia, our constitution, from my own understanding now, because I've been reading it over and over, it seems that those guys they wrote the constitution with certain self-interest in mind, because the executive wanted so much power, and some of those things are haunting us now. That's why we see some of the things that are going on. I just want to clarify that, because I made that comment earlier. If you're talking about democracy as a worldwide, institution, you can't connect it to what we do in Liberia. What we do in Liberia is different. The president is the head of government. In the United States, the president is not the head of government. He's the head of the executive. So that's where I got that comment from.
Yeah, I think, or last thing, I think it's the same in the Liberian Constitution. I don't know if my guest will say.
No, so in the Liberian Constitution, if you go to, this is the 1986 Constitution, right?
Yeah.
Let me see.
What page?
No article.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, I don't think so. It is the head of the executive.
That
Yeah,
yeah.
no, in the Liberian 1986 Constitution, it actually said the president is the head of the government. That's why I'm correcting myself, because I
Okay.
made that statement. I know people are going to read it.
All right.
I'm trying to
If you
correct
find that
it.
article, just post it. Just post it,
I
and we can.
got it in front of me.
Okay.
If you give me yeah, I got it in front of me. So
He's right. He's right. Yeah, he's right. Go ahead. Sorry.
all right. So let's see.
It's in Article 50, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to give you the article.
Okay.
It is
Article 50.
Yeah, so Article
50.
6, Article 4, Chapter 4, now Article 50 is Chapter 4. So Article 50 talks about the executive. If you look at
Yeah, I see that. I see that. I see that last thing. Let me read it for our readers. Let me read it for our viewers to get it. Article 50, the executive power of the Republic shall be vested in the president, who shall be the head of state, head of government, and commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Liberia.
thank you. So that right there tells you that Liberia have given too much power to the executive branch. That's one of the changes that needs to be done. I just want to make that point.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for pointing that out. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, if you go to the United States Constitution, you will see the difference is very, very clear how the executive is not given that much power. I mean, they are giving the commander-in-chief and head of the executive, but the head of government is not the executive. And that's where I got that from. I stand to be corrected.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, and also to end a comment on that, in order for us to make these changes, people have to, instead of you protesting the president, protest the senators. You know, because it is the Senate responsibility to amend the constitutions. You know, they need 2/3 of a vote to do that. So I believe they can. But if you go in and start protest the president cannot make an amendment to the Constitution without the Senate's approval. You know, only the Senate can do that. So if we want to make the changes, we have to educate the Liberian people that, okay, these are the things that we are finding in our constitutions, and it is our leaders, the one we elected into office to represent us as a nation, as people. It is their job to make sure that this get amended. It won't get amended only if this individual politician are there for self-interest. But if you're not going there for self-interest, you will listen to what the people say, and you will do exactly what the people say by making an amendment and by having a vote on it, and then restructure the government, and then try to distribute power accordingly, and then those powers can concentrate on the people.
You know, Dennis, actually, this is why I made a comment when I said in Liberia, in our democracy, the president is the head of government. Yeah, because I've seen that. But the problem is, for me, we got to understand the United States has a federal form of government. We got to understand that too, okay? You know, so all of the individual states that make up the United States of America, they got their own laws, they got their own constitution, okay? So I can understand why some of the limitations exist in terms of how much power the president has as compared to the system we have in Liberia. However, that does not preclude the lawmakers from exercising the authority that has been given to the people through them. Because I think the Constitution, in a way, sets a balance. Although the president is the head of government, but there's check and balance. And there are ways that the legislature can call the president to order if he's proceeding wrongly. You know, who passes the budget? Who allocates money in the budget for development, for healthcare, for education, for the military? That is done by the legislature. Who decides the salary of the president? And I hear people say, oh, the president gets too much money and do that, do that. Hey, who decides how much he gets? We the people decide this is how much we're going to pay the president and the vice president through our representatives, through our senators. Okay? If we think that the president office is getting too much money, we give it to him. If we think money not going to LOFA and Maryland and money not going to healthcare and not going to education, we made that decision. And I don't like to put the blame on the president in this case because nobody is coerced to make that decision. And people in the legislature should be independent. They should know that if the draft, that's what they call the draft, if the draft budget comes before them, they can move money from wherever to wherever. They have the power to do that. But they only move money into their chambers. They only move money into their portion of the budget and forget about the other places. So how then can we put the blame on the president? How can we put the blame on the executive? Let's put it on our lawmakers.
Exactly. And it is a lawmaker responsibility. Like I said previously, if there's a budget that is passed, if I'm from District 3 and I'm a senator for District 3, I'm going to make sure and advocate for a better education, for school to be built, because that's the agenda that I ran on, and that's what the people elected me to do. I can't have the bills that come into the Senate or the House of Representatives because I have to go to the House first. So if I'm a representative from a district and I allow for a bill to pass without my district or my county getting any funding there, you are not fit to be a House of Representative, or you're not fit to be in the Senate because you're not advocating for the people.
All right. Let me read a few comments again. This one from Albert S. Cole. Most of the people elected in both houses are people who know the right things to do, but are they doing the right thing? We need mind change in Liberia. Robin Dribble said, I think we need to start looking at alternative form of government that are working for ordinary people besides the US, just a thought. And so Robin is also asking a question. He said, what are your guest thoughts on socialism? Meaning the idea of Liberia moving away from a government of quasi-capitalist democracy towards a socialist democracy. Your thought?
Excellent comment, excellent comment. But first of all, let me say we do not have a capitalist system of governance. We don't have it, okay? And I know we copy things from all over. We copy things from the United States. We put in the Constitution and we say that's what it is. It's not. You don't have a capitalist system where the highest employer is the government. There's nowhere in the world where the government is the highest employer. Okay, in Liberia, the highest employer is the government. Everybody depends on the government for everything. The economy is not driven by industries in Liberia. It's not driven by the commercial sector, the private sector. The economy is not driven by the private sector. The economy in Liberia is driven by the government, through whatever policy they make. That's what drives our economy.
Somebody told me.
Why should we pretend?
Mr. Wilson, someone told me the U.S. government is the highest employer here in the States. I don't know, but that's what someone said.
Repeat that question. Repeat that statement.
It said the U.S. government is the highest employer.
Highest employer of what?
Of people in the country. I've not verified that, but that's a statement that I heard.
Let's verify it. I agree with you. Yeah. Let's verify it. But I mean, I think it's just realistically, it's not possible. I don't see how that can happen. But like I said, we can verify it.
Yeah, yes, like the army alone. But we can verify that.
Yeah, we can verify it. But
let's begin to wrap it up. We talk about the definition of democracy. We talk about the types of democracy and now the principles of democracy. So what happens if a country is not adhering to the principle of democracy? What do we do? What's our recourse? You go first, Aloysius.
Well, it's all come down to accountability. if the government is not doing what it's doing in a democracy, we have to hold them accountable, and they are there to make sure that the laws are passed in the interest of the people. So it's like the people employ the government, right, and give them saying that, okay, I'm going to trust you with my right. I'm going to trust you to make laws on my behalf. To see, I'm going to trust you with my liberty, and with this liberty, this is what you have to do. These are your roles. These are your job descriptions. It's almost like a resume. If you don't meet these job descriptions, pretty much I am going to fire you, and that's what it should be. And also, too, we need like a limited government. A limited government is a political system in which there is certain restrictions placed in the government to protect individual rights and liberties. And that's one thing we have to have. And then one thing that people have to know. But Liberia can progress if the people don't know what the roles and responsibility of the state are, of the state representative or the country representative or even the president.
And Robin stressed another point here I want to read, and based on that, I want to ask a question. Robin said, while civic education is important, we should place some emphasis too on the ease of voter registration and access to polling stations. So, do we know of any group that is carrying on civic education in Liberia, or because this is so crucial? Do we see our political parties engaging into that, or how really? I don't know how to ask the question, but really what I'm saying is, how serious are we when it comes to civic education, and what are we doing from the political parties to civic organizations and everybody else?
And I'll come in first. I spoke to my sister from Liberia today, and I asked her, she's 14, and I asked her, where's the responsibility of the senator? She don't know. She's going to be, I don't hold her accountable. I don't blame her for not knowing. I've been assisting or schooling her half back home, and she said she don't know. I said, okay, so what about the senator? She said she don't know. What about the president? She's like, oh, I think the president is supposed to create jobs and all these things. So civic education is very important because one, people know what the responsibility of the government is and their responsibility and the roles when it comes to government. Then we can have what the guests, what the listener suggested, and we can have like a poll, we can have the things. But first, we need to educate the people on what the role of the representatives is. Then we can, election time, we can go to a polling and then educate the people at the poll. They'll be like, okay, this is what democracy is, this is who you're voting for, and this we have to do. But the government also have to create those things for the people, but the government not doing that. If you can't educate the people, how would they know?
Thank you.
Let me just add one more thing on it. And also too, I read an article a couple of weeks ago, and the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, he said that Africa have all the resources, but the problem is with the leaders. Like I said, then I go back to my previous statement. The people those who are elected don't have the country's heart. So, and that just proved by Putin points. The Russian president said that the African leaders don't know how to run the thing, and they are very corrupt, and they do not have the people interests at heart. That's why Africa it is the way it is right now, because of the leaders.
So to your question, let me just add, Dennis, I think the way to start this is to compel our government to begin to teach the Constitution as it is required. And you made that in your introductory comments. You made that point. We have to compel our government. It's already there. It's in the Constitution. It's a requirement. We have to make sure that it happens, because people don't learn. Civic education doesn't start on the day of election or during the year of election. It's something that should start way down the line when the kids are around 12 years, okay? They should start learning about their government. They should start learning about their responsibilities as citizens, their rights, so that if someone is trying to violate their rights, they know what to do. And if as citizens, they know what their responsibility also is to their country. But if we don't do these things and people grow up with the ignorance, and at the end of the day they make decisions because they don't know, we cannot. Then it's our loss. So what can we do as a way forward? There are two things. First of all, you and I can get up today. We go to the Supreme Court. We file a petition. We sue the government, compelling them. The Ministry of Education, actually, we sue the Ministry of Education because the ministry has the responsibility to make sure that civic education becomes part of the curriculum, and part of that is the Constitution being taught at every school. So we sue the Ministry of Education, and the Supreme Court compels the Ministry of Education to make sure that that provision is implemented as per the Constitution. That's one thing we can do. We can also educate our people through our own engagement, like what we are doing right now, through the media, in our various communities, at the various Atai centers, and intellectual forums. We should begin to talk about these things. We shouldn't shy away from them. But and I think political parties should get involved. But the reason why I know they will not get involved, and they don't want to get involved, because they benefit when the people are ignorant. Okay, they benefit. So it's like you're going to tell somebody, it's like you're going to educate somebody how to scrutinize you, when you know very well yourself you got a lot of skeletons in your closet, and by the time you educate the person, they will uncover those skeletons, and it's going to work against you. So it's not in the interest when the people are intelligent, when the people are educated, when the people know how to make decisions. It's not in the interest of the political parties in Liberia. That's why they're not even going to advocate for it.
Okay, we have another caller on the line, but let me read Article 10 of the Liberian Constitution. And after my group, we wrote this book, this is our constitution, we compiled these documents. We wanted to sue the Liberian government, just like you said. Article 10, the Republic shall ensure the publication and dissemination of this constitution throughout the Republic, and the teaching of its principles and provisions in all institutions of learning in Liberia. If that is not being done, why can we sue? All right, we have a caller on the line. That will be our last caller, and then we can close the broadcast. Caller, your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Patrick Soa, and I call you from South Dakota.
Patrick, welcome to Focus on Liberia. Guest, can you hear him clearly?
Thank you, it's my pleasure. Can you hear me?
Can you hear him?
A little bit static, but yeah.
Go ahead, Patrick.
The U.S. Department of Defense is the world's largest employer. It has 3.2 million people. Walmart is the private largest employer in America. It has 1.5 million people. The federal government is the largest employer in America, like you said. Yeah. So you are correct. But I want to make a few corrections before concluding. One of the guys said that he does not need political parties. We don't need political parties to elect our leaders.
No, he said he does not need.
Yes. I respectfully disagree. He needs political parties. We need political parties. And my source is from Political Science 360. There's a course there, it tells you about the role of political parties in democracy. Political parties are easily one of the most visible institutions in democracy. It is not about immediate or not. But according to Political Science 360, political parties are easily one of the most visible institutions in democracy. For most ordinary citizens like in Liberia, in Ghana, in Nigeria, democracy is equal to political parties. In other countries like heavily populated countries, India, America, and other places, political parties forming part of government is very important. So it's not that he needs it or not, but according to political science itself, we need political parties in the process.
Okay.
So your question, Dennis, let me just conclude with this. How can we customize our democracy? It's easy. We can customize our democracy by upholding, by effectively, by efficiently upholding all of the pillars, all of the fundamental pillars of democracy, and also by upholding and effectively implementing the full elements of democracy. When you have the time, maybe I can tell you what are those elements and what are those pillars of democracy. But next time, we can become it on there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Soa. All right. Gentlemen, let's conclude.
Yeah, let me just conclude there, especially with the comment. I really like his contribution, and I just also wanted to clarify. There's no way, and I don't say this, for any reason, but there's no way we can have a democratic system without political parties. My point is, I do not need political parties to decide who becomes my leader, whether representative or senator. I don't need political party to make that decision. Okay, so I don't see any reason why we should have, tens and tens of 20 political parties, 22 political parties. I don't see why we should have so many political parties all over the place when all that they do is to confuse the voters the more. So my point was there's a need to reduce the number of political parties, and that's a way of customizing our democracy.
And I also agree with his point also too.
Okay, your final thoughts.
Well, my final thought, in order for democracy to work, we would need the control of power and abuse. And the control of power and abuse is democratic society. Okay. What I mean by control and use abuse of power is pretty much just, in a sense, those who elect into office, if there's no control and abuse of power, they become there are two things that can either elect. They become corrupt, and when they become corrupt, they start using the fund that is supposed to give to the people. They take that fund and use it for themselves. So that's why we need a limited government and also check and balance. And we also have to hold our state and Senate accountable for their actions. And the rule of law, they say that no one is above the law. So even if you are elected officials and you break a law, you should be held accountable for it. If you are elected official, if there is corruption within the government, there should be thorough investigations. Or if individuals in the Senate feel like this individual is being corrupt, they can read a bill and then have the individual be investigated. But none of this is happening, which means that democracy in Liberia is failing. In order for democracy to be up high, everyone have to contribute to making the country a better place and to the laws and regulations.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for the show. This is our first in the series of civic education. So today we dealt with democracy, what it is. We got the definition. We got the types of democracy and the principles of democracy. Give us a prelude of what we're looking at next Friday. And guests, we want to thank all our people who are here contributing across the globe for joining us tonight. While you look at tomorrow, everywhere is going to be power pack at 12 noon. We have some professional Liberian ladies who have come together to shine the light on the violence or gender-based violence in Liberia. So tomorrow at 12 noon, we're going to have sexual and gender-based violence awareness right here on Focus on Liberia. You can't afford to miss it. Then at 7, we're going to have a powerful debate on current issues. You have 4 politically active, politically and intellectually inclined individuals who's going to be debating current and trending issues in Liberia. Most of them are political issues. You still can't miss it. So Aloysius, give us a preview. What do we expect next Friday?
I am trying to pull that up right now. Bear with me one moment.
Why are you doing that, Aloysius? Or maybe we will next Friday we hope to delve a little bit more into the three branches of government, start to look at the roles and responsibilities of each of the branches and how that kind of supports the basic principles of democracy. We want to look at the separation of power, the replacement of elected officials. We might also look a little bit more at justice and equity. So just to give you a little bit of a gist of what we want to do.
And the name of the show is called Power of the People on Focus on Liberia. So it's a segment on Focus on Liberia. But this shows right now, the name of it is called Power of the People. And if you look in the constitutions, the first sentence above is a power belongs to the people. So we are trying to take the powers away from the elected officials and give it back to the people by us doing this to education and to interactions and just become self-aware. Not because I disagree with you does not mean I'm your enemy. I'm disagreeing with you because I want us to be better. So if I disagree with you on certain aspects, I'm like, oh, that Aloysius, man, he disagree with me, so don't do this. No, you and I have the same things at heart, but we just have different way of approaching this, but we can find a common ground on to work on what we agreed on. Then we can discuss later on what you are disagreed on. So just for everyone to know, this is Power of the People.
And on that note, we want to thank you, gentlemen, very much for the show. We want to thank all our viewers and even those who will watch later on YouTube and on other social media. We say, keep your dial here at Focus on Liberia. Here we educate, we promote, and elevate all things Liberia. Until then, my name is Dennis Jah, signing off on behalf of Focus on Liberia.